figure out what you stand for, but then don't waver on it.
Right.
At some point, maybe you quietly back away. It's, let's diversify. But the way they handled it was, I think, abysmal.
Well,
and
it
it's
goes
not
to the
often.
fact it goes to the point that they didn't stand for it in the first place.
Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars as I start off episode number 155 of the Promo UPFront podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me, as always, let's call him the Field Marshal of Fair Labor, the one and only Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, how the Coshocton are you?
You know what? I'm doing pretty well. Things are rocking and rolling. Yeah, I cannot complain. I was telling you right before we started, I had my grandson stay the night last night, so I didn't get quite as much sleep as normal, but other than that, I'm doing great. How about you, bud?
Doing good. It's been a very rainy early summer in Nashville. So kind of hit and miss. So I haven't been as outside cooking and doing the things as I generally like to do as much, but you know what? That's part of the deal. But it didn't get me to thinking today.
Right.
No, I was I was actually thinking about our sponsor today. It's PXP Solutions, and I was speaking with Bruce Jolish, who's the owner. Terrific guy.
Yeah.
And I was saying, hey, what do you attribute your success to? And he said, Bill, it's two things. We have a shared vision for the final result for the end users with our distributor partners. And I'm like, well, that's a really interesting way to look at it. He said, number two, we have a dedication and commitment to the highest levels of service. And, I that did actually get me to thinking, Kirby. We often talk about it's not what you sell, Kirby, it's what you stand for. And Kirby, this is who PXP is and what they stand for. So in short, they do what they say and stand behind what they do. And I want to ask you, Kirby, is there a better foundation upon which to build a business?
I could say that would be your statements right on in any industry, right? But even more so, I think, in our industry, because I say as a distributor, one of the things that you've heard me say before is I'm in the business of making promises for other people. And so my goal is to do business with people who keep their promises. And so for me, that's as important as anything. It's more important than price. It's more important than, all these other things. Is if you do what you say you're going to do, that's how you build a business and a reputation.
I couldn't agree more, Kirby. For more than 13 years, PXP Solutions has worked with distributors where they enjoy a relationship that is built on that mutual trust, respect, and a reputation earned one project at a time. They strengthen this foundation by bringing in new ideas, techniques, and creative graphic design that meets, no, I don't think that's accurate, Kirby. It exceeds the needs of the distributor client. And here's a fun fact. They have the capacity to print about 50,000 impressions a day and embroider more than 2,500 things per day in their facility. So, Mr. and Mrs. Distributor, consider this your personal invitation to join PXP Solutions to help your business grow. You can call the owner, Bruce Jolish, like I did, and I use these following numbers to do so. 214-380-1883, or if you want, you can email them, and that would be at bruce@pxpsolutions.com. So, Kirby, I haven't done this in a while. I want to thank you for having the courage to not only wear blue today, as I am, but to also podcast with me as we, start our march towards 200. So I have the upfront section for those of you who are brand new to listening. We try to do a promotional products topic up front. And the one I have is it's going to affect our industry if it goes to fruition. It's going to affect every industry. It's going to affect every human in this country if it goes forward. And that's UPS, the Teamsters who work for UPS, their drivers and the logistics people there, have authorized a strike for August 1st if they cannot agree on a new contract. So if the Teamsters and UPS cannot agree on a new contract by that July 31st deadline, there's going to be a catastrophic work stoppage, Kirby. 97% of the members voted in favor of the strike. So they are unified. This is not a simple majority, folks. This is not a plurality. This is a landslide.
Yeah.
So they seem unified and determined. Now, obviously, this is, a strike's not imminent. We're still about 5-6 weeks away from that deadline. And this is generally a negotiating tactic, much like giving a deposition before a trial. It's, a way to hopefully get people closer together, so they can find an agreement before that deadline hits. Now, talks are continuing and people are saying the right things. We're agreeing on some issues, but we're far apart on others, and we're going to do it.
Sure.
From a promotional products industry perspective, if UPS went on strike, it would be devastating.
Yeah.
If the drivers for UPS, I wouldn't say UPS is not going on strike, the Teamsters who operate the vehicles. I wanted to ask you, Kirby, first of all, does this concern you? Or do you feel like, this is kind of just the way things go and they'll get a deal by the deadline? Or is it a big deal? And then secondarily, have you started preparing your clients for this eventuality?
Okay, so
or possibility. It's not an eventuality, for this possibility.
Yeah, so I would say yes. So I'll be honest, I just read this week. So my initial reaction was sort of like yours, raised eyebrows and, when is this supposed to happen? Okay, August, we've got some time. So, so am I worried about it? Yes. Have I started hyper worrying about it? No. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh man, I had those exact same thoughts where it's like, oh, if this happens, it's a big deal. And my initial thoughts were, okay, should I start talking to suppliers about utilizing FedEx? Should I, just whatever, USPS? But I'm like, well, not yet. I don't think so. And so in answer to your question, yes, I'm wildly concerned about it, but it hasn't risen to the level of I'm worrying about it in my business. And then have I communicated this with my clients yet? No. Again, with the idea that I don't think we're there yet. I agree with you. I think it's a negotiation tactic, but is it on my radar? It sure is.
So I'm going to disagree with you. I think now is the time to absolutely talk to your clients about this. It probably won't happen.
Yeah.
The law of averages say there's too much to lose here for them not to make a deal.
Right.
But to not prepare at least your top clients who generally order things as again, if you have the data that hopefully you have, and when I say you, not you, Kirby, I mean the global you as a distributor, the data you have is when your clients order and things like that. I think it's absolutely a great time, once again, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is a great opportunity to go to your client, say, just wanted to put this on your radar. And as we see things, understand that if it seems like it's going towards a strike, it absolutely will impact the promotional products industry and therefore future orders. So if it's something you're concerned about, let's work together now and get those orders in. It's fine if you don't. And I would be so upfront, I'd be pun intended. I would say, I'm not trying to get sales out of you now. What I'm trying to do is prevent issues that are possible down the road. It's totally up to you, but I wouldn't be doing my job as your partner here if I didn't say this is a possibility. And again,
I think that's really good.
And when we always talk about as salespeople, when do we contact our clients? And the more we can contact them in a non-salesy way, hey, I've got a special. Hey, I want you to look at this. When you can contact them and say, I want you to be aware of this, it may or might not impact your plans for promotional products. But if you have plans for promotional products this fall, this is a possible roadblock. And I want to make sure we talk about that before it's nothing I can do, because FedEx, DHL cannot handle the overflow from UPS. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, because I think I read that UPS handles like 33% or something like that of the shipments that are going across the country or whatever. So that's a huge number. And I think, man, it's a really good point. If I'm being candid, you've got my wheels turning, because it's like part of what it is like, I'm not trying to get a sale from you in August necessarily that you would do in December. But what I would say is you should order it in October, right? Like, because the delivery times are just going to be that when it's actually one of the things, and maybe this is a sort of a side conversation, but I was having this conversation internally when Dustin, who's doing more sales now than he has in the past, and he's like, they say it's a 5-day production, but it's 5 days after the proof approval, and then they're shipping. And I'm like, and I think when many of us who've been in the industry for a long time think Oh yeah, of course. But if people who have worked in the industry are still thinking, oh, it's 5 days, well, our customers for sure think that.
They have no idea.
And it could be 10 days shipping.
Right.
If and when something like this happens. So I think your point is super well taken. So I like that. You may have just created a to-do list item for me here today.
Again, if I'm an end user client and someone came to me looking, not trying to sell you something, just want to be aware of this. You've probably seen it in the news, but you may not think, well, I don't, fine, I can't get my Amazon deliveries as quickly as possible. I want to tell you how this may affect what we do for you. Yeah. And if you want to make plans, I'm here for you. If not, that's fine too. But it's my obligation and duty to tell you this stuff. So
yeah,
something to think about. Thank you. Hey, Kirby, I do have a question for you as we shift gears.
Okay.
Are you ready to make a big splash with towels? And I know you are. I want you to look no further than Epicolor exclusively from our friends over at Kanata Towels. That's right. Epicolor provides that vibrant, photorealistic, edge-to-edge sublimation we all love. I mean, who doesn't love a big towel with a beautiful picture on it? Here's the other thing. No minimums, no setup charges, and deep inventory with products to fit every single price point. So learn more at KanataTowel.com. Not towels, KanataTowel.com. Great company, and man, they have some really cool towel stuff.
Yeah, all right, Kirby. Well, it's Kanata Towel because you can do one.
That's correct. Boom. Boom. The microphone is dropped. If it was not on an arm, I would drop the microphone. All right, Kirby, you got a topic for us?
I do. We teased this a little bit last week, which we generally don't do, but so you knew this one was coming.
Did.
And I don't know if anybody's heard, but Bud Light had a thing, right? Like so, and there was news.
They had a situation.
They had a situation. So Modelo Especial has surpassed Bud Light as the best-selling beer in the U.S. In May, reflecting, quote, enduring damage. This was from the Wall Street Journal. Now, I think many of us who follow beer, which is a weird thing, I think, to say, but pay attention to the beer market a little bit. Understand that Bud Light's market share has actually been dropping for, years. But they've been the number one selling beer in the United States for 20 years, right?
Yeah, correct.
And of course, the thing that has sparked the conversation and the quote enduring damage is them featuring a transgender influencer, Dylan Mulvaney, and people's reaction to that.
Correct.
So those are things that have happened, but I think it was interesting to me that Modelo Especial had passed Bud Light as a number one selling beer. And when something like this happens, Bill, I'm always like, okay, so A, what can I learn from it? And B, what can we talk about? So what I wanted to do was just talk about, okay, this happened. What are some lessons that you see? Now, you knew a little bit of this is coming, but I have a couple that I have, but I didn't know if you wanted to go first.
I would like you to go first because this is your topic. I did some research on this. I did for the first, we don't do this. I'd say maybe for the fifth or sixth time in this podcast, we have prepared the same topic. So no, I'd love to hear what you have. I'm sure there's going to be some overlap. Sure. But why don't you kick us off, Kirby?
Yeah. So I have three. Okay. So I have three things that I look at and that I think that could relate to any marketing business or the promo industry. So number one lesson is just know your audience. Right now in the world we're living in, every brand seems to want to hop from cause to cause to show that they are, socially responsible. And I think in many ways that's really good, right? That we are bringing to light issues that maybe hadn't been brought before. But I think you and I've talked about this before. It does allow sometimes for people to come off, or organizations and brands to come off as inauthentic because they never cared about this particular issue until it was that month, right? And now it's a big deal. And so
it's good to be. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just know your audience, because I think one of the lessons is Bud Light veered wildly outside of their audience. You can agree or disagree with the stance, but their audience didn't like it. And so I think the lesson number one is know your audience. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was the one interrupting, so I apologize. I just want to add to what you said. It's good to be flexible and all that, but here's the thing. When you're so malleable, you can't be firm on things.
Yeah.
And so it's good to be flexible, but you have to know who you are. And the only reason I jumped in, because I had the same lesson, but just from a slightly different perspective. And then I want you to finish your other two, because I think our other two mine might be different. So understand what your audience expects from you is what I wrote down. So just a different way of saying the exact same thing. You can change who you are, but you have to make peace with the fact that your legacy audience may not go with you.
Right.
And you know how much I love analogies. The analogy I have is bands.
I knew you were going band, yeah.
And I'll go even Van Halen, and I didn't even have to think about this till right now. When David Lee Roth either left or got fired as the lead singer of Van Halen in 1985, they went with Sammy Hagar as a replacement. A controversial move, kept the band name because it was the brothers' last name.
Yep.
And it went in a different direction. Now, the music was already going in a different direction. Eddie always wrote the music. So people love to blame the keyboards on Sammy Hagar, but Eddie was writing that music. They knew that not every Van Halen original 4 members of the band, people were fans of that. They knew that not everybody would go with them. And they were okay with that. They made peace with that. So I think if you're going to do something different, you're going to really say, we're picking a different lane here than historically we have not picked. You have to be comfortable that you're leaving some of your legacy audience behind. And that's okay. That can be okay.
Yeah, I like that.
But yes, know your audience. Your point is 1,000% correct. I'm now going to shut my pie hole.
No, it's good. I like it when we have a back and forth. So I guess the next lesson that popped into my head was diversify your product line. So, I think people think of Anheuser-Busch as Budweiser and Bud Light, but they have been regularly acquiring other brands over the last, probably 10 years. Many of them craft beers, which is where, some of the explosive growth happened in beer over the last 10 years. And it was funny because there was some, from the independent beer producers, there was some pushback to that because it's like, oh, you're going to take away the independence or whatever. I think from the Anheuser-Busch perspective, it made sense. You put resources behind a brand that's growing, and then you diversify yourself so that if and when something like this ever happens, you have other sources of revenue. So diversify your product line is lesson number 2 for me.
Couldn't agree more. And I had this kind of down, they have 100 brands of beer. Okay. And so they have diversified, and it is more than Budweiser, Bud Light, Mick Ultra, so on and so forth.
Yep.
I think the funny thing is that with the backlash against the influencer, the LGBTQ plus influencer that Bud Light had aligned with, you had someone like Travis Tritt who said, I'm no longer drinking Bud Light, and showed his beer refrigerator full of Karbach beer, which is a brewery in Texas, owned by Anheuser-Busch. So, again, I remember when the craft beer thing was exploding in AB InBev, which is the parent company of Anheuser-Busch, was buying all these brands, and people were like, oh my gosh, it's going to be awful and terrible. You didn't even notice half of it. So, 100%. So I agree. You have to be diverse. It's like kind of like McDonald's. If all of a sudden they didn't sell Big Macs, that's probably a good comparison. All of a sudden Big Macs are off the menu.
Yeah.
They still have plenty of revenue streams with the quarter pounder cheese and McNuggets and French fries and other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then finally, I think for me, it's like the final lesson is nothing lasts forever. So 20 years is a long run for having the #1 selling beer in the US, but nothing lasts forever. And it sort of goes with my idea of diversifying the product line, but how are you capturing those customers to maintain to be your customers? The analogy I would give you is PPP, right? In our industry, like there are a lot of studs in the industry who jumped on that right away. And they we're doubling down, and we're going to do masks, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And in a short-term burst, that was really good. My pushback at the time was that we are a branded merch company. And so I want to do PPP that is consistent with that, so that when we capture those customers, they stay as customers. I've seen a lot of distributors who did really well with PPP who are all of a sudden really struggling because those customers never viewed them as resources outside of, hey, you can get me masks. And so,
right.
So to me, that lesson is nothing lasts forever. What are you doing to capture those one-time customers?
Right. No, and that's a great third lesson. I have a different third, one. So this is where we touched on the factor you did, I should say. Sales of Bud Light have been declining for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And even the VP of marketing for Bud Light said, if we don't start attracting young drinkers, Bud Light doesn't even have a future. Right. And that's one of the reasons they decided to try something different. I look at it from the perspective, they tried something different, which we all try ideally, we all try different things from time to time. I think we can learn a lot from their response, because I think their response in every way, shape, and form was horrific. They did everything possible wrong to damage the brand.
Okay.
And here's what so after sales started slumping, right immediately sales took a nosedive, because again, what we talked about in point one, didn't really either know their audience enough or accept that their audience would be open to something so wildly different from them from a marketing and branding perspective. So after sales started slumping, two executives took a leave of absence. And about 3 weeks after everything started happening, they came out with an announcement, hey, we're going to redouble our marketing efforts on sports and music. So it's very quickly, they basically said, F you to the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
Because sales were slumping. What does that tell that community right there? We don't give a shit about you. Sales didn't work out, so sorry, go on your own. And so we talk often, we talked about it at the top of this podcast, and I know it's something you and I believe in. It's not what you sell, it's what you stand for. And I don't know what Bud Light stands for anymore, other than dollars and cents.
Right.
And so I applaud them for, trying to go in a different direction with LGBTQ plus community. I don't applaud the fact that they didn't either double down on it. I think they did the worst possible thing in their reaction. Instead of saying, hey, these are a group of people we want to attract as drinking Bud Light, and we're not going to apologize for it. Right. Because to me, the way they reacted, it's like, we were just using them anyway for money, and it's not working out the way we had kind of planned. So we're off that. To me, they're going to be very much on the wrong side of history on this thing. And I look, and it's very, so my lesson takeaway is figure out what you stand for, but then don't waver on it. Right. At some point, maybe you quietly back away. It's, let's diversify, but the way they handled it was, I think, abysmal.
Well, it goes to the fact it goes to the point that they didn't stand for it in the first place.
No,
right? That's the challenge.
They were being too malleable. They thought, now is the time for us to do this because we think that our audience is ready for it, and they weren't. And it's very rare that I ever give Garth Brooks credit for anything, but I'm about to. So Garth Brooks is opening a new bar in Nashville. And if you're familiar with Nashville, almost everybody has a bar in downtown Nashville, including Kid Rock. Now, Kid Rock was very famous in his I am never drinking Bud Light. He did take it out of his bar in downtown Nashville, I believe. So Garth Brooks is opening a new bar, and he was criticized when he said his new bar in Nashville would serve many types of beer, including Bud Light. Okay. And he said people who are upset about it can go to many other bars in the area if they want. And I love that. Here's his quote. Everybody is welcome to their opinions, but inclusiveness is always going to be me. I think diversity is the answer. All inclusive, so all are welcome. I understand that might not be other people's opinions, but that's okay. And what I think that's the right stance here. Mm-hmm. Again, I would talk about earlier, wrong side of history. Bud Light's on the wrong side of history here. They decided to go, you look at a needle, they decided to go way one direction. Mm-hmm. And they probably went too far. I mean, from a marketing perspective.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
based on their audience.
But they didn't know their audience. They clearly are making a decision between profits and purpose, and they've chosen profits. Yeah. And if you're not taking that lesson away from here, then,
Well, and again, I think they allowed bullies to change. Again, you either believe it or you don't. Yep. It's actually, if you want to give Garth Brooks he's been consistent as a human like this for years. It's one of the things I admire about him is he will tell the man to go screw himself because he does whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so
that's also easy to do when you're sitting on a giant stack of money. So,
sure. You mean like Bud Light?
But yeah, well, not right now. If you're the VP of marketing for Bud Light, you're not sitting on a stack of money. Great conversation. Glad you brought it up. Hey, distributors, I got a question for you. Is your marketing working? Well, if it's not, you know what? You need to reach out to our pals over at Promo Pulse. They can help you consistently amplify your sales through stunningly beautiful outbound marketing that's so easy to use. You can customize it, set it, forget it. 5 minutes. Learn more at promopulse.io/amp. Okay, Kirby, let's keep in the industry.
Okay.
Sudden closure of Baltimore Glass Decorators. I'm sure you saw this. Baltimore Glass Decorators came from ASI, is where I learned from it. It's all over all industry news. They apparently closed the company in early June due to quote unquote unforeseen circumstances. Their products are no longer available on ESP. Wow. Google lists the business as permanently closed. I hate this because Brian Summers, very great guy. I know him a little bit. I hate that for him. But I really want to talk crisis management here. So as a distributor, how would you react if you had a large order right now that was in process at Baltimore Glass Decorators and you found this out? There are distributors who have this problem.
Yeah. I think that the first thing you do is go, okay, this particular item, whatever it is, can I get it from another supplier? Right. That's the first obvious one. And then I think it really goes back to if the answer is yes, then this is actually a fairly easy solution. We move it over here. I probably communicate that to the customer either way. Hey, had an issue with this supplier, going to go to this supplier. Does that change the price? Does it? Whatever. Here's what's going on. And then really, then I think goes back to what you said earlier on the podcast. It's about communication. Hey, we placed this order. It's gone. We don't know what's happening here. Cause I think I've seen some posts where they're like, well, we're not hearing back, so we don't know.
Right.
Man, you got to move off that real fast and find another thing and hey, we can't get that. Here's 3 other options and we can still do it in the time and budget and date that you need it by. Let's just make a decision quickly. So for me, it would be, can I find it? If I can't, I'm moving off of it really quickly and communicating as best I can.
And I actually agree with you almost 100%. I think the first thing you need to do is look at the timelines with your clients and see what's in jeopardy.
Yep.
Next thing to do is find a substitute. Third thing is, once you have a solution, now you communicate the problem to your client and also tell them here's the solution, right? There's as little stress as possible. I think there might be some issues with enhanced dates that I think that would be my main concern. Most of the glassware can be found elsewhere in the industry.
Right.
So, and obviously it's a great opportunity for suppliers to really rise to the occasion and get some new clients. But I really like that. But I think, the thing is, I think the message here is focus on your client first, then worry about if you've prepaid or money, and worry about that later. So I loved your answer. And I think that's to me, my takeaway from this type of conversation is focus on your clients first, find a solution to the problem. If there's one, and there may be sometimes where there's not, maybe there's no stock anywhere else and you're out of luck. Then you still have to communicate that to the client. Make your communications to be decisive and be expedient about communicating it. I've looked at every option. Here's the options. It's an increase in price. Actually, it's a decrease in price. It's the same price, whatever it is. Or I'm sorry, I've looked at every option. I can't get this for you. We need to look at other glassware options.
Yep.
And people might not like the truth, but they'll always respect it.
Yeah. And speed is a superpower. I'm finding that more and more in the business world today. It's the thing I'm trying to preach to my team. It's like, just make it, do whatever you're going to do it fast, because people appreciate that more and more, I find, in today's world. So I think that's good.
Absolutely. All right, you got one more, or are we good?
Yes,
are we
real
done?
quick.
You're the official timekeeper of this podcast.
Yeah, we're almost up on it, but I just saw this headline and I thought it was fun. And so I thought it'd be a, party in the back kind of funny thing. Yep. So it starts with the quote: you shouldn't wait until someone is dead to meet up with them. Okay. So a Belgian man named David Berton felt unappreciated by his family. So he took the next logical step. He faked his own death and then showed up to his own funeral in a helicopter to make sure that in all future events, his family invited him. So I wanted to know that, when you take that next logical step of faking your own death and showing up to your own funeral. How do you think your family is going to react?
Well, probably a lot of sadness that I'm still around. Mostly. Now, I did see this. I actually saw this story, and I thought, man, what a cry for help for this guy. And what an express way to I mean, you talk about violating the trust of the people you supposedly love. Whatever.
Fake your own death. I mean, that's a big step. I mean, think about all the stuff you got to do to make
I have a whole list. I mean, look, within 15 minutes, I can fake my own death. Okay, let's be real clear on that. No,
there's no way. There's no way I could keep my mouth shut.
I couldn't either. And there's no. I mean, to me, that's just such a. It's sad, man. I mean, it's funny because it's such a weird wheels off thing to do, but at the real base of it is sad. More than anything else. But I'll tell you what's not sad, Kirby.
Okay. What's that,
pals over at Peak? Thank you, Kirby, for.
Sorry, I was a little slow on the uptake.
That's okay. Our good pals over at Peak Solutions. That's right. They attribute their success to two things, and two things only. One, a shared vision for the final product result for the end users, for your end users, distributors, and a dedication and commitment to the highest levels of service. They have such an amazing capacity. 50,000 impressions a day they can screen print or print, and then over 2,500, I should say, pieces of apparel and hats they can decorate, embroidery on a daily basis. That is an enormous amount of capacity. Great guy, Bruce Jolis, would love to earn your business. You can give him a call, 214-380-1883, or you can email him at bruce@pxpsolutions.com. Kirby, until next week, I'm going to go fake my own death.